Welcome to the Voices of Young People podcast, brought to you by Springtide Research Institute. In each episode, we hear directly from young people as they respond to our research and share about the issues impacting their lives. As sociologists and researchers, we see a new story unfolding for young people, one that moves beyond traditional institutional boundaries and requires careful attention to the inner and outer lives of emerging generations. At the intersection of being and becoming, it's the Voices of Young People.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode in Season 9. This is the Voices of Young People podcast, and I'm your host, Marte Aboagye. I'm the head of community engagement at Springtide, and I absolutely love that in my job, I get to regularly talk with our Springtide ambassadors. We have young people from all across the country who commit to a 15-month cohort. We're in our fourth cohort currently with our Springtide ambassadors. The shorthand for that is SAP, Springtide Ambassadors Program, SAP. And I have two wonderful ambassadors with us today. They're from different parts of the country. They have different passions and interests. And I know that they care about different social and political issues. So I'm excited for you to hear from them and for us to get into this conversation as we continue to explore the themes that come to life in our report, Cultivating Care, How and Why Young People Participate in Civic Life. So let's get into it. I'll have Joe introduce himself first.
Hello, my name is Joe. I'm 19. I'm from Northern California, and I'm a creative, passionate person. I care very much about human connection, and that is always what has fascinated me the most. And I just took a year off from school to travel mostly in East Africa, also some in Europe. And now I'm back home for the summer, and yeah, happy to be here.
Happy to have you here, Joe. I think it's so cool that at 18, when you finished high school, you did this sort of gap year with traveling. I think that's sometimes what people do after undergrad even, but you already had this creative passion, like you said, to look at storytelling in other places, filmmaking in other contexts. And I particularly love East Africa just because that's where I finished my grad school program. So it's really been cool to be like, where in the world is Joe when you're connecting with different Springtide ambassadors meetings? And welcome back to the U.S., back to your home state in California. We have another incredible young person with us. Mya, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Mya and I'm 17 years old from Minnesota. I'll be a senior this fall in high school, and I love playing basketball and getting the chance to interact with many different people. I've been playing basketball since I've literally been like 6 years old, and I've spent every single summer since then traveling across the country playing basketball for my AAU basketball team, which has been super fun.
It's so cool to know that you as a student athlete, Mya, are getting to see so many different parts of the country, because like when I was saying to Joe, where in the world is Joe for different monthly SAP meetings this summer, it's been like, where in the U.S. is Mya? Because you're traveling a lot for basketball, like you said, different tournaments and camps. And I know it's a huge, huge passion for you in terms of being a student athlete. And as you look towards college, it's been really fun to hear you be like, okay, I have to make decisions now if this is something I'm going to pursue beyond high school. So I know you're still in the sort of deciphering phase when it comes to all of that, but I love hearing about your adventures and just your passion and commitment to the sport. So we have two young people here who just do cool things in the world and care a lot about what they do, but we also know they care about some of the topics we're going to be discussing in the next few minutes. So Mya, Joe, I want to know, when you first hear the word politics, what comes to mind for you? Mya, do you have just first words that hit you?
I think definitely the government and what shapes our world and our society right now.
Totally. What about civic care? Does that strike you in any different way?
I would say definitely like standing strong on your beliefs and advocating for them in the way that you can and being engaged in society.
Totally. I love that. I love that definition. Joe, what comes to mind when you hear the word politics?
I think when I hear people say politics, generally, I think of like national presidential elections and things,
Mhm.
which can be limited. Which for the term civic care, I think what I think of is like you can either be passive or active in your role in society. You can
Mm.
accept the way that things are and not think about them much or care about them much, or you can allow yourself to engage in them intellectually and take action to try and change things in society how you see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely going to be talking about both themes in this conversation, but we heard so often from young people that we researched across the country that they really cared about improving society, but they often felt like politics was just too heavy, that it didn't actually capture the ways that they wanted to make make the world a better place, like you were saying. So we're still definitely talking about politics here, but we also want to expand the conversation to think about different ways that you engage and care when it comes to your own communities and beyond. I'm curious if you consider yourself to be civically engaged, and if so, in what ways?
I have kind of mixed feelings about that. I know that I am fairly informed and I feel strongly about things and how things can change and how I want things to change. And I feel like have struggled to find like avenues to express that and to begin to take action towards that. And so I I want to become more civically engaged. Um yeah, looking for
Yeah,
ways to do that.
I hear that. I hear that. And it's actually just encouraging to me to be like, hey, someone who's 19, right, Joe? Do I have your age right? 19?
Hmm. Yeah, I just turned
Yeah, someone
19.
who's 19 is like, I want to do more. Like there's ways I don't exactly know which avenues there are, but I want to do more. I think that should be encouraging to any adult listening, because often young people are characterized as being out of touch or apathetic or, just not involved in their own communities or political life. So that desire alone is really encouraging. What about you, Maya?
I would definitely say throughout my like personal like community, I've always tried to be as engaged as I possibly can. And that's kind of came with like my parents and some opportunities that I've had. So I think in the sense of being able to meet and collaborate with a lot of different people coming from a lot of different backgrounds, and a lot of different beliefs, has definitely helped me feel as though I am pretty engaged. And just like getting to hear different people's opinions on all sorts of things politically and just throughout the world, which has kind of like shaped where I'm at with all of that and just doing all that I can to volunteer and do what I can.
Yeah. So having a lot of conversations, it sounds like, with the adults in your life, being in those type of discussions, volunteering. And those are both incredible ways to feel like you're civically engaged because you can't even vote yet, right, Maya? Like you're getting close. You're 17, but the fact that you already feel like an involved member of society pre voting age is wonderful. I would love to hear if there's a social or a political issue that you feel particularly passionate about. Why do you care about this issue? When did you start caring? Are there people in your lives who similarly are concerned about this?
For a social issue, strongly believe that the mental health of like everyone is really important, but especially like the youth. And I think when COVID hit in 2020 is when I really like started to believe like super strongly about that issue. Just seeing how I believe COVID has affected like the youth mental health as a whole and just like observing that. And it kind of like mental health was always something that I'd heard of, but had never really experienced like anything, I guess, and hadn't ran into much until COVID hit. So I think through that, I noticed that it was definitely something that needed to be talked about. And my peers definitely agree with me. on that, as well as my family. So I have had the chance to talk with them about it. And I just think that the mental health of the youth is something that needs to be talked about actively, and just everyone deserves to have some knowledge of it and understand the importance of their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why Springtide dedicated a year of our research to that exact crisis you're talking about when it comes to mental health and Gen Z and the loneliness epidemic, as it's often dubbed for your generation. And you're so right that COVID just really shone a light on a lot of pre-existing issues and often exacerbated it for so many young people. So I always appreciate hearing your care about that. What about you, Joe? I know you're passionate about different issues. Is there one that rises to the top for you?
One that I've been thinking about a lot lately is housing, which is a really, really big issue, particularly in California where I live. And I've started caring about that initially from an immersion trip that I did in my junior year of high school. We went to LA, and one of the parts of that trip was going to Skid Row and meeting people there and talking to unhoused people that were living there, and also talking to some nonprofits that are working to support people that are living there. And so I got exposed to that situation, the reality of having so many unhoused people in California, despite having immense wealth here and way more than enough resources to house the people that live here and so many more. So that inspired me to learn more about it and to care more about it. But also my uncle started a really, really cool nonprofit in San Jose, California, which started just a few dudes cleaning up in the park and him paying them some money to do that. And it now has bloomed into this really big operation that is which they have 100 or 200 people every weekend that come together and clean up the park, and also is a gathering place for so many other nonprofit organizations to provide resources for unhoused people in the Bay Area. And it's the coolest collective action mutual aid organization that I've ever seen or been a part of, and is super inspiring. And I've had some really cool conversations with my uncle who started it, and then my cousin who is the executive director of it, is running it essentially. And have learned a lot from both of them, and I admire them a lot. And so that has brought me into caring about housing in California, and and inspired me to learn more about it and immerse myself in it.
It's really rad to hear that you have family members that are doing something really innovative to make different community resources, it sounds like, come together and address real needs on the ground with folks, and that you've been able, it sounds like, to observe that and contribute in different ways, but how it ties into this larger issue that is certainly nationwide, but we hear California in the news a lot, where some communities and towns, plenty of properties sitting empty, while other folks are sleeping outdoors. And how does that make sense? It doesn't match when there's enough resources, but they aren't actually being utilized even. So I really appreciate hearing your passion for this. And it's cool to hear that it began in high school, it sounds like, from different observations you're having on that LA trip, but that it translates to your Northern California life as well. I think you both know, but for our audience listening, we do tons of interviews every time we do mixed methods research. So besides surveys that go out nationwide to young people ages 13 to 25, we also do qualitative research interviews. We did over 80 of those interviews for the data collection for this report. And there's so many quotes, they can't all make it into the report. So I want to highlight one in our conversation right now and let you both respond to it with whatever thoughts you have. So this quote comes from Krishna. We use pseudonyms, but we're calling this person Krishna, age 22. And Krishna said, I think there is a sense of helplessness among people my age and younger of our ability to affect change. And I think it often ends up leading into feeling like, what's the point? Like, can you do anything? Should you do anything? How much of an influence do we actually have? I think at times I've felt small compared to the power political leaders have and that the government. How does this strike you both? This quote from Krishna.
Something that I've heard expressed a lot with our generation of people. And I think that, the powers that be right now are very powerful and have a really fairly tight hold on the resources and structures that govern society right now. But at the same time, we as young people, the collective energy is very strong. And I think there's a growing sense of resistance to the structures that have power right now. And I think that in isolation, people experience this a lot. What's the point? I can't do anything. But when we come together and recognize how much of a commonality there is in how we feel as young people, in our hopes for the future, and in our ambitions, and in our shared belief that change will happen. And there's certainly a lot of young people that are dissatisfied with lots of the powers that be right now. And I think that as we continue to collaborate and work together, that change will happen. And some ideas from our generation will become the dominant ideas and the governing ideas of our society.
I love that. I love what you're saying, because, that line from Krishna, she said, I often feel small, personally, if it's just me, when I look at these structures and systems within the government. But so much of what you're describing is about seeing where there's like-minded people to collaborate and work together, and that you're not so insignificant when there is that communal response. What about you, Maya? How does this quote from Krishna strike you?
I completely agree with absolutely every single thing that Joe just said. He could not have said that any better. I think a lot of us young people do not understand how much power we have, and how much we have to bring to the table, and how all that we can do with our voices. And that's something that I hope as time progresses that we are all able to understand and see. But we 100% are in control of what the world is going to look like 10, 20 years from now. And that's something that I think, and I know that we're all eventually going to understand when we're finally there. But I think, I don't know, we all just need to have a better understanding of the power that we have, like I said. Mm-hmm. And that we all, like Joe said, have very strong beliefs and do all that we can now about them, but continuing to have those as time progresses and doing already what we do to truly make the world look and be how we all want it to be. And like I said, we are 100% in control of that.
That is a hopeful message, honestly. I think I hear from people from all different generations who could resonate with what Krishna is saying when it comes to feeling kind of helpless. I'll speak for myself as a millennial. Sometimes I'm feeling fairly helpless when I get overwhelmed. But the fact that you, Maya, and you, Joe, are we have power to enact change. Let's recognize this and let's do something. And to your point, Maya, that the young people right now are impacting what's going to happen. It's not like you guys are just sitting idly by while other people make decisions, but you're like, no, we want to be a part of the conversation right now. And so with that, I would love to know who has influenced you to think this way? Who or what has made you think that you can be a part of enacting change? Is it friends or teachers or family members, or is it things you've read, some organization you've been a part of? How have they impacted your political views like this?
I'd say for me personally, definitely like my family members, but also just like observing the world and hearing a lot of different things and seeing a lot of different things. Also like in our generation and what we've gone through with COVID and everything else that's happened in this world in the past few years and since we've all been here, I think definitely plays a large role on that. And so I'd say for me, just definitely observing the world and personal experiences. But also I'd say like with what we've kind of all gone through with COVID and many other things, just understanding that there's obviously issues going on in this world and we can't just kind of sit here and not do anything about it. And so I think, at least for me personally, that's kind of made me feel as though I can speak up about things I need to speak up on or that I feel strongly about.
Yeah, I love that the ways you're able to name different current events that have had such an impact on these formative years for you. Joe, what have been some of the people or things that have influenced you?
I think that I've been influenced by like a wider range of different sources in my life. Certainly my parents and my family and like my schools that I went to and the people that I hung out with in high school. But one thing that has helped me develop my ideas a lot is introspection. Is I do a lot of journaling and writing, and I use that as a way to develop my ideas and figure out what it is that I believe. And that has allowed me to know what it is that I care about and to know what it is that I find true. And just talking to other young people and hearing people express themselves on social media, it is very clear that there's a lot of people that are struggling right now, more than have been in the US, I think. And like economic inequality is getting more and more enhanced and more oppressive. And there's a collective struggle with the working class in America, and more people are expressing their discontent. I think it's becoming easier to be able to look to your peers as people in the US and recognize that there's a shared struggle, that there it's easy to build, to create camaraderie. And I think like it's just clear that there's people are struggling, and there are a small amount of people that have access to the resources and governing power that are creating those systems. And so people are more open and more willing to express that like we need change because change is needed. I've heard more and more people express that. And so that gives me hope, and that gives me confidence that we will come together and collaborate to enact change.
I love hearing that you're so in tune with some of these discontents across society when it comes to social inequality, and the ways that you hear these in conversations, the way you do your own self-reflection in journaling to process these thoughts, and the fact that, yeah, you can also identify the ways you hear a lot of this discontent through social media. I know that, as a millennial, I'm getting a lot of my news and messaging through social media. Some young people I talk to are totally off it and don't use it, which I'm like, you go. That's awesome. And some are like, yeah, this is where I'm learning a lot of my viewpoints. So it's helpful to hear if that's one for you, that you're able to identify that. You've both shared in the conversation that you have different family members who you discuss politics with. When you have conversations with people from another generation, other adults about political issues, what do they do that makes you feel like, hey, this is an open conversation I can share with them? Or have you had an experience where it was the opposite and you're like, this is not productive, or this does not make me feel like my voice is actually valued in this conversation? Love to hear any takeaways from that.
I would say ever since I've been younger, my parents have kind of always like had me be around them and their friends and just older people, if you will, which has caused me to have conversations with people that are older than me ever since I've been younger. So as I've continued to grow up and through that, like more and more has been brought up and all of that. And so I've like I said, been able to hear and observe a lot of it. And so I think what makes me feel heard is just like them asking questions or being curious, like as to why I feel what I feel, and making me feel as though they really do care about where we're coming from. Younger individuals are coming from, and hearing our perspective on the world, I guess. So asking me further questions on how am I taking this? How am I doing in the world that I'm living, in the generation that I'm living in, if that makes sense.
It totally
And
does.
then having a better understanding of why I feel what I feel.
Yeah. Sounds like you have adults who show genuine curiosity and interest in what you have to say rather than being dismissive. It sounds like you've been able to experience like these people value me and my opinions and my thoughts and what I'm working out here with them. I really like hearing those examples. Joe, what about you?
I totally agree with Maya that like it's so important to respect us as young people, that our experiences are real and valid, and we are just as much a part of society in the same way that everyone else is, and that our experiences are valid and are equal. It's a thing that has happened for every generation ever. I think that younger peoples get dismissed because they are like they don't know what they're talking about, or they haven't experienced enough or done the things that I've done, and so therefore they don't understand. I don't really have much to add to that. I think Maya did a great job. Yeah, if you come with respect and you actually want to listen, you actually want to hear what we have to say, then that's all you can do. Like,
Where young people know if they're being like really listened to in a constructive way, or if they're just like being passed over or just talked down to. Like they're very aware of whether a conversation is like on level footing or not. So I know that you both have a great deal to offer. So I'm glad you have adults in your lives that take you seriously in those ways.
And also another thing that I wanted to add to that, if there's something that a younger person like clearly understands less, like is ignorant about, some people will just dismiss them and say, oh, I can't have this conversation with you. And some people will try and teach, try and explain things and help provide understandings that they don't have, that they're maybe ignorant to. And that makes a huge difference, because that's the difference between a person that genuinely wants to have a conversation and create a shared understanding and like, have a productive conversation versus someone that doesn't want to, is unwilling to challenge what they believe. And yeah, I think it's super important to also be willing to teach when that is applicable.
Yeah, for both people to be teaching, for both people to be learning, that it's not just like the young person is this empty slate that knows nothing, and you, the wiser older adult, knows all. Like, to see your relationship as reciprocal is what it sounds like. You both have things to be challenged by. I love that. I'm wondering if you consider yourselves to be spiritual or religious, and if so, in what ways does that impact your own politics?
I would definitely say that I am pretty religious. I've grown up in a Lutheran church and go to a Catholic private high school. So yeah, I've always been religious. I don't think it's affected my views on politics really much at all, or played much of a role on it as of right now.
Thanks, Maya.
I definitely am a spiritual person. I don't associate with any one religion right now, but I grew up going to Catholic church, and I went to Catholic school, so I'm very much influenced by those ideas and those spaces. And my spirituality certainly influences my general worldview and my politics. And I think it does so because part of like what my worldview is, and a big part of my spirituality, is a belief in love and human connection. And that certainly influences how I see society and how I feel that we can move through together and how we can organize ourselves. I believe that humans can do good to each other, and that we will, and that there is that energy in everyone, and it can be encouraged and brought out. And yeah.
You both are so thoughtful. I really enjoyed this. The last thing I'd love to hear from you both. If you could tell the world what everyone should know about young people and politics, what would be your message? What would you say?
I would definitely say that we've observed a lot and have been able to form our own views and opinions, and that our views and opinions are 100% valid, and that eventually they'll be able to be 100% heard.
Thanks, Maya.
I want to say that young people have always been the leaders of revolutionary change, and that will always continue to be the case. There's a level of inspiration among young people that has always enacted the most change, and that is not different right now. And also that because of like the changes in technology and how we communicate and social media and all of the things that are different now than the internet generally, like the experience of young people now is just unimaginably different to the experience of young people like 60 years ago. And we have a level of like interconnectedness and awareness of different peoples from different places and different parts of society and different parts of the world that other generations just have never had. And that just gives us a very new perspective and a very different perspective that I think a lot of older people just simply can't really grasp. And I urge people to recognize that and recognize how different that is and try and learn, and also just try and recognize that for older people, your experience growing up is just like not at all similar to. Like in some ways, there are some similarities, of course, but there's so much that is different now. We are the generation that has learned in this world, and we're stepping into an adult world that is crafted by the same technology that we understand in a different way, and we are used to experiencing and have learned with. Things are changing a lot, and young people are going to be the leaders of that, as we always have been. That's what I have to say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. That was wonderful. I've so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for just who you both are in the world. Thanks for sharing your thoughts today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Marte.
Visit springtideresearch.org to hear more voices of young people and to learn about the latest research and resources available, along with Cultivating Care, how and why young people participate in civic life. Springtide Research Institute is dedicated to listening to young people and sharing critical research and actionable insights from what we learn. Visit our website to find ways to support our work and discover ways that we can support yours. You can find us and follow us on social media at We Are Springtide. If you're enjoying the Voices of Young People podcast, we invite you to rate it, review it, and share it with a friend. Today's show was produced by Marte Aboagye. Audio was mixed by Andy Palmer. Opening description from Fardosa Dahir, and original music by Christian Unthank. Special thanks to the 12 guests featured in Season 9 and to all the young people whose perspectives and insights make our research possible. Thanks for listening.